Corner and Creep Show. I've hosted segments for indie horror flicks with some degree of crowdfunding and kept it 100% on brand. But for episode 4, we're going to take the side road into the rape revenge genre. I'm Mr. Samhain, and this episode is for one movie that I just happened to come across scrolling through Instagram maybe a couple years ago. Saw a picture with text and a shotgun-toting nun that stood out to me as more or less instantly recognizable. Being the kind of guy that likes his exploitation cheap and his women violent, especially while wearing a habit, I was instantly drawn to what clearly said this is a grindhouse type movie, and that movie was Get My Gun, a 2017 rape revenge movie by New Yorker Brian Darwas, where the story goes sideways for a cheap motel housekeeper who's going to find out a lot about why you shouldn't use Craigslist to try and adopt out your bastard baby. No, this is no I Spit on Your Grave or Miss 45. Get My Gun is a different rape revenge movie since, as we'll see, the rapist is actually not the primary antagonist, which is certainly unusual. As I said, Get My Gun was directed by Brian Darwas and features a cast and crew that were predominantly women, including being co-written and produced by Jennifer Carcietta. Brian has done a bunch of car motorcycle stuff, as he's big on both of those things, especially hot rods. And those are mostly documentaries, as well as shooting a locations featurette for the Blu-ray release of Frank Henenlotter's Brain Damage. And that was until doing Get My Gun when he decided he wanted to do an exploitation grindhouse style movie. So anyway, let's run down my scores. I'm giving Get My Gun 1 star for plot, 1 star for kills, 0 stars for nudity, 1 star for tone, and then 1 star for effort. So 4 stars. And you can find Get My Gun actually right now on Shudder. So if you're watching along with the movie, go ahead and pause me after the fade. Watch Get My Gun up until after Amanda gets done eating her birthday cake on the kitchen floor. Unpause me, watch the non-paid commercial break, and then we'll talk about that extended setup. I just want to reiterate, though, that the 0 star for nudity isn't necessarily like a bad thing. Not every movie has to have nudity, but this is a horror movie show, and we love our boobies in our horror, don't we?
When cruelty knows no bound, when evil knows no limits, revenge strikes with its most frightening power. They called her One-Eye, then ran for their lives. It's only a movie, yet it will push you to the limits of your own ability to endure evil. They called her One-Eye, rated R.
Man, talk about the worst birthday. See, this is why you don't play pranks like this, especially at like a scummy hotel, full of seedy characters. Rebecca more or less just got Amanda raped because of a joke. Anyway, these two build a pretty good relationship after, despite the circumstances their friendship starts under. Amanda's played by Kate Hoffman, who has been in a few small things, but really hasn't acted anything I can find since then. And then Rebecca is played by Christy Casey, and this has been it for her as far as acting goes. Just one and done. Which is interesting to me because I think they do the best job in the entire movie creating a believable chemistry with each other and coming off as like actually endearing characters and believable. I mean, both were casted through Backstage.com and then were the last ones actually to audition, and both landed their parts, having also read for the opposite character. And it was also because they came off as like actual friends while reading, and that definitely shows in the movie. The realism thing here plays really well for me, and honestly is like a big selling point for me. And that's what actually does it for me for Get My Gun. Amanda and Rebecca's interactions, the Monday workday at the motel, ins and outs of working with a new coworker. I mean, phone calls from mom, just life stuff. The opening scene where Amanda forces her rapist in the trunk was actually filmed near a convent. The nuns walking by cheered on the filming as she forced him in the trunk at gunpoint while dressed as a nun, bringing even nuns like nuns carrying guns. I also love the exchange between her and the guy where he says, I have a wife and kid. And she says, you have a wife and 2 kids. And then blows his fingers off with a shotgun. Okay, well, we're now going to meet the true antagonist to Get My Gun. You think it's going to be the motel rapist? Nope. Brian's going to play a switcheroo here, and we're about to meet Catherine, a baby-crazy older lady who has more than a few screws loose. So go ahead and pause me. Watch up to after the girls are done confronting Catherine in Amanda's place with Amanda's mail. Unpause me and then watch that non-paid commercial break, and I'll see you back here soon.
Forgive me.
This woman will cut, chop, break, and burn 5 men beyond recognition.
On your knees.
I don't like women giving me orders.
There isn't a jury in America that will convict her. I spit on your grave. Rated R.
Foreshadowing. So we've gotten a pretty heavy dose from Rebecca saying maybe she wants to kill you and steal your baby. And then Amanda saying, I'd rather keep the baby than deal with a psycho stalker. Okay, so the girls are about to head into the woods to get out of town and away from the crazy old bitch, right? Or will they? Catherine, the not doctor, certainly plays a trying to be restrained but not crazy lady who wants Amanda's unborn baby so bad that she'll buy her groceries, show up at her doorstep to check in on her, and also stalk the hell out of her, and then some, as we'll see here pretty soon. Catherine was played by Roseanne Rubino, who has been on some stuff, just nothing I've seen, or likely you either. But she does play a fairly effective, unhinged older lady. Okay, well, if you're watching along, go ahead and pause me after the fade. Watch the movie up to when Amanda takes the Jeep out, but of course it runs out of gas. Unpause me after the non-pay commercial break, and then we'll talk again. You know, like crazy ladies are one thing, but crazy older lady is a bit scarier. I mean, look at Faye Dunaway and Mommy Dearest. But here in Get My Gun, we got Catherine, who's going to get a lot wilder, and it isn't about to be about wire hangers.
They've taken over your school. They've taken over the streets. There's nowhere to run. Nowhere to hide. When violence rules the night, she brings justice her way. Linda Blair stars in Savage Streets. Rated R.
Savage Streets, now playing at a theater near you.
Wow. All right. So Catherine is, of course, showed up because why wouldn't she? She's been good at that so far and stalking Amanda. She's going to get that baby. The girls just want out of town and away from the crazy lady, and then the crazy lady shows up, murders Rebecca, then goes shining Jack Nicholson in the cabin, and then Amanda backs over her friend before running out of gas. The crew had a hell of a time shooting this movie as they encountered issues everywhere they went. People with no authority demanding permits, people honking, asking questions, blasting music, not leaving. And of course, the woods were no different as they had people shooting guns on one side and then somebody washing their cars on the other, plus blasting music. Poor Jennifer, the producer, had to keep running back and forth around trying to ask people for their cooperation while they were trying to shoot their little indie film. You got a permit? Okay, well, we're now going to see the conclusion of Brian Darwas's Get My Gun. You already got a pretty good idea how this movie ends, right? Well, there's a couple moments coming up that are going to be a bit of fun. That baby isn't going to stay in the womb, and we're going to see the movie's opening scene actually played out. This is probably the least rape revenge movie you may ever see. The rape is relatively quick and not as difficult to watch as others, and the revenge isn't like the others at all, as Get My Gun is focused on a protagonist that isn't actually seeking revenge on her rapist or men the entire running time. You got a very lengthy rape scenes in I Spit on Your Grave and Irreversible. Then you got Prolonged Revenge and I Spit on Your Grave and Thriller. Then you got Miss 45, which turns the Me Too movement into the U2, as Thana is gunning down every dude that she can. And here we got Amanda who just wants to adopt out the baby, isn't concerned with revenge, and just wants to move on with her life. Until Catherine shows up. Give me my fucking baby! That's a hell of an ending. Let's recap. We just saw a self-administered C-section in a shed, a face obliterating via log, and then a decapitation via rope by car. Fucking bravo, Brian. Now, some of this happened a bit off camera, but the point was still brutal enough, even if all the results weren't completely shown on screen. The baby Amanda walks away with after killing Catherine isn't a baby at all. They didn't have a prop baby, so they had to make do with the least baby-like thing imaginable, a pile of chains from the shed. Some of that shed scene was actually shot out in the front lawn of someone's house as they ran out of time in the woods, so they had to pack up the shed and finish it up on cut grass next to a street curb. I like how they looped back to the coup de grace and made the rape movie a rape revenge movie by finally killing the motel rapist that set this whole thing off. The rapist was played by William Uset, who has done a number of small cast indie roles, but he didn't have awful much to do here outside of his one scene and then getting his fingers blown off. But what I don't get, of all the plot holes people have pointed out, especially near the end of the movie, the one that I am the most confused by is how he doesn't recognize Amanda. Maybe he's raped a whole lot and can't remember faces, but you'd think you remember the scar he left on Amanda's face. Anyway, he gets his head popped off and Amanda gets her revenge. Can you imagine driving down the road and then seeing a body and then 40 yards down the way is the head? That was another scene they had a hell of a time trying to film, as there was traffic and then a park worker kept coming by and hassling them to leave. So what appears to be an out-of-the-way road was anything but in real life. Is actually filmed in the, I think they said the Bronx. I'm still really glad Brian and Jennifer managed to make this and not retread every inch of covered ground along the way. There's a lot that worked here for me, and honestly, Get My Gun felt like an exploitation movie, and a Lifetime movie had a baby, which was then cut from its mother's womb in a woodshed. Okay, well, that's it for this week's episode of Corner Room Creep Show. I'm Mr. Sam Hain saying, watch something new for a change. I'll see you next time.